All right, that makes it 5:30, so we'll call to order this special, although it's our only April meeting of the SVUESD. Before we launch into our posted agenda, I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda as follows. We currently have an executive session listed at item number 12, which allows for us to discuss labor relations, which we will do. But I would also like to add an executive session pursuant to subsection 313A4, which allows us to discuss in executive session a disciplinary or dismissal action against a public officer or employee, provided that we take any action in open session. But the discussion at least would exist in executive session. So, anyone care to make that motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Jeff. We have a first and a second. Any discussion about amending the agenda as described? None. All those in favor of amending the agenda to add 313A4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Great. So it carries. So that brings us to our first agenda item, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you so choose, I would invite you to stand and recite with us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, agenda item 2 is the consent agenda, which was attached. Two resignations, 2 nominations, and as well as our minutes from the March 25th meeting. Any discussion, first of all, just about the consent agenda and its components? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published, please. So moved. Thanks, Glenn. We have a second. Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Great. That carries as well. We're now on to public comments, and I know we have a few people, I think, online.
If they if they hit the reaction button and say, raise their hand, then we can call them.
Any public comments at all?
I just want to say I'm a union rep from Shasberry. The board wants to be more visible at the board meeting. I don't know if I need to say this every month. If you want me to stop, I'll stop.
Yeah,
I said it every time.
And your name, Dennis?
Kathy Clark from Shasberry, and I'm a union rep, and we just want to be more visible at the meeting. So I'll be here every month.
Is that just for Shasbury or is it for?
It's for the whole
elementary?
district. I told them I would take care of the elementary board meeting.
Thank you.
Welcome, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Electronically, there's Elizabeth Duffy, who has indicated she has a public comment. So if you can unmute yourself.
Hello. I wanted to kind of chime in. I thought this meeting was tomorrow, so I was planning on coming in person, but it's today. I just wanted to just express some concern. I did see that the Pledge of Allegiance is on tonight's agenda. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to just make a public comment about that. I have a child at Shaftesbury Elementary. I've had another child who was at Shaftesbury Elementary. I will express as a parent of the Shaftesbury Elementary community how disappointed I was of how all of this was handled by staff and by the community, how there was a lot of inferences made about the Pledge of Allegiance and the reasons why it wasn't being said in the classroom. I was also disappointed about how there were staff that had kind of blown the whistle on it and made our school a target in the community during a very politically charged time, I think for reasons because of political reasons. My kids have not said the Pledge of Allegiance in their class. This affects 2 classes in our school. We have so many bigger things to think about in education than talking about the Pledge of Allegiance during this time. It really upsets me that inferences were made by our community suggesting that families and parents don't care about veterans because they're not saying the pledge on a daily basis in class, which is not a practice that is being done in the majority of classrooms. It is not developmentally appropriate for some students at a younger age and should not be forced upon them, especially right now. We all have individual liberties and freedoms. And to say to a kindergarten, first grader, or second grader that they can not participate if they don't want to is really, these are young kids. They're going to do what their teacher tells them to do. They're going to do what their friends ask them to do. If it is so important to members of our community and staff in our school, it can take place at home. This is not a place to be forcing kids to say the Pledge of Allegiance, especially at this time when a lot of families in our community are being erased at a federal level. There's just a lot to be said, and a lot I think that needs to be considered beyond some practice that sure we all felt warm and fuzzy about when we were kids in elementary school, but times have changed. Ideas, thoughts have changed in the community, and it makes me really sad to see what had happened over the fall, how it was just so much anger and so much hate and so many things being said about just not wanting to say something, not wanting to practice something, and something that affected just a few classrooms at Shaftesbury Elementary, and it became this three-ring political circus. So I would very much hope that the board has put that into consideration, that there are other families that have different ideologies and have different ideas in practice. And if it's that important to families in our community, that's what at home is for. That's what for practicing that as a family is for. Just like religion, just like other ideologies that we all hold dear to our family, that should be practiced at home. It does not need to be done at school. And I just wanted to express how absolutely disappointed I was of how our community handled this, how the rhetoric that was said, the words that were said, the description of our children and inferences that were made. So I really hope the board deeply takes that into account when they make this decision, that this also affects other families in our community and other ideologies. And it's okay to have differences of opinion and ideals. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Phoebe Cotton has her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I also have a second grader at Shaftesbury Elementary, and I just want to second what Liz Duffy just said. I think that, again, this is developmentally inappropriate for our students to be doing. They're going to feel peer pressure, even if they're being told they don't have to do it. They're going to feel pressure to do it anyway. And our classrooms are increasingly diverse, and not all students may feel a sense of allegiance to their country right now. And I think that you can disagree with that statement, and I'm sure lots of people will. But I think that we also need to allow space for freedom of speech and freedom of thought in our schools and set an example. And I think Ms. Duffy's point that this is important to many, many families, and that's something that they can practice at home, is a really important one. There's many things in our community that are important to individual families or subgroups of our community, but that doesn't mean that we're bringing them into our school's classroom time. Classroom time is so precious for our students. We know that many of our students are struggling with basic, learning skills, and taking away more time from the classroom for this sort of activity just seems like not in the best interest of our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands electronically.
Any other folks here for public comments? I would ask if anyone is online looking to participate in public comment, please just feel free to unmute yourself and let us know you're there because we're not seeing you otherwise. Hearing none. Any last moment public comment to be made? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm in the car. I just wanted to say that I agree with the last few comments. I've already spoken at a meeting a long time ago, so I won't continue, but I just want to say I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Can we have your name, please?
I also, sorry, my name's Stephanie McGowan Poling. I have students in the MAU school system, and just wanted to echo and agree with Liz and Phoebe and Natalia. I just feel that there is a time and place for all of this, but classroom time really needs to be devoted to civic engagement, and there are lots of ways that can be done. But as Ms. Duffy was saying, we live in a world that is changing. People come from different backgrounds. We need to respect that. We can hold on to important traditions in the United States and teach things in a civic way in classroom settings through history courses, but forcing people to say something and pledge something to ideals that may not be something that they value or that is important to them just feels wrong, and it feels inappropriate to peg our kids up against each other. That's my other concern, that some kids may not feel comfortable, other ones will, and kids are going to point that out, and that's how we see bullying activities happen in school. And it feels inappropriate to sort of put our kids in a situation where they can be bullied for belief systems that their household may have and other kids don't have. So I think just taking it off the table is what makes the most sense out of classroom time, at least.
Thank you. Anyone else on? Okay. Great. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item is agenda item 4, operations. We need to take action on the repairs to the Bennington Elementary roof. Nicole, can you do something that
I do, the Director of Operations was not able to make it this evening, so I met with her and Finance. The money is in your budget. They're asking a recommendation for $159,057 to award a contract to the low bidder, which was Vermont Roofing Company. The work will be done prior to August 15th, 2026, so it'll be done over the summer. It is the lower roof connection project of Bennington Elementary School, which is frequently leaked. So it is budgeted, and it did go through the bid process. We're just asking you to approve.
first from the board, any questions we want to ask before considering action on this?
Did you say this year, August or next year?
No, August, yeah, it does say it prior to August of 2026. That can't be right, so. It's in next year's budget. Yeah, I'm assuming that the plan is that this will be done over the summer after July 1, so it's
Right.
next fiscal year's funds, so I'm sure the confusion is fiscal year towards calendar year. Good.
Got it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, with that covered, I would entertain a motion to award the contract to Vermont Roofing Company and authorize expenditures from FY 26 general fund up to $159,057 to cover the scope of work and associated costs as outlined in the project summary, which was attached to our agenda tonight. You want to make that motion, please? Thanks, Steph. Do we want to second that motion? Thanks, Steph. We have a first and a second. Any further questions or discussion on this piece of item?
This is Mary Ellen Nunley. I'm online, and I'm just curious, is this a second repair to the roof? Was there a repair done last summer as well?
A different section of the roof.
It's a different
Different
section
section
of
of
the
the
roof.
building, yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
So we have a first and a second on the table and no further questions or discussion apparently. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? No, great. It carries. Thank you very much. Okay,
Fine.
so moving on to agenda item 5, finance. The treasurer's report, I believe I saw it posted. So did anyone have any questions after reviewing the treasurer's report? Very good. So all those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report as published, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Right, that carries. That moves us on to agenda item 6, which are policies. We have 3 to adopt. And Sandy, as our rep to the policy committee, is there anything in way of introductory comments you'd like to make regarding these 3 policies?
Just on the first one, the superintendent of schools evaluation and review, we are asking that we as a board collectively come up with some ideas for goals for our new superintendent so that we can share them with the MAU board.
The SU.
I'm sorry, the SU board chair. Thank you.
Did the policy committee have a means by which or a method by which they hope that feedback would be shared?
I don't think we had that in here. We did, I don't think so. So we as a board can share that with you if you're okay with collecting them, or we can discuss it in open session at some point. That's up to you.
So when in May is the SU? It's after this board's meeting.
Yeah,
So
but that the goals don't actually have to be set until the latest September 30th. However, our current superintendent has suggested that the new superintendent would like
probably like to see them earlier, as he may have wanted to also have seen them in the past as well, earlier than September.
So, I mean, my initial thoughts are these, and I'm open to hearing other thoughts. Since ultimately the SU is going to make the decision of what goals they want, since superintendent is the employee of the SU, I suppose I don't know that this board needs to spend much time coming up with goals when they're merely sort of advisory or suggestions to the SU anyway. So to that end, I would be happy to sort of collect all thoughts and all ideas about superintendent goals, and then I'd be happy to pass them on probably to our SU reps, and then let the two of you kind of take in, and Christelle as well. I think she's right there,
Yeah.
to take that to the SU at that point. Does that sound reasonable to folks? People can let me know, or put it all together in one document and ship it off.
Yes,
Sandy.
and we haven't adopted this yet, but this isn't new.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, we are quite happy.
So, with the expectation that this policy is going to be adopted by all the constituent boards, does that sound like an okay approach to generating ideas for goals, for superintendent goals? Okay, cool. Anything else we should know in terms of these three policies that we're supposed to be warning tonight?
No, they're pretty straightforward.
Any?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, very good. So, I would then entertain a motion that we adopt policies 2600, 4100, and 5175. So moved. Thanks, Bud. Thanks, Cindy. So we have first and second on adopting these three policies. Any further discussion or questions about these? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting policies 2600, 4100, 5175, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? No. Great. So we have adopted those policies, and they'll go up to the other board, the other constituent boards next couple of weeks. All right. Can I keep track of that?
Yeah, here.
It's like it's my first day. No, it's okay. All right. Thank you.
You said it's a new computer.
It is a new computer. Thank you, Jim, for reminding me it's a new computer. Okay, so that brings us to agenda item 7. So Pledge of Allegiance update. So when we met to sort of finalize the board practice back in December, the idea was that we would come back and just sort of see how it goes. That was the understanding that would be part of the conversation. There were areas in which members of the community sought some clarity around this. So I've gone back again to watch the December SVUESD board meeting. My YouTube algorithm isn't quite sure what to make of that, because they've gone back to that same video to watch it over and over and over again. I get woodworking and I get that anyway. So the way we left it there, and there was lots of conversation. This was part of the reason why I think clarity was sought. Certainly at part of the conversation, before any motion was made and any action was taken, part of the conversation was a desire by some of the board members to see the Pledge of Allegiance take place during what is often referred to as morning meeting. I would also point out that there was conversation amongst the board saying that it needs to be said. There were statements made by board members that it absolutely needs to take place outside of school time, right? So all of those bits of conversation informed the ultimate action taken by this board, but none of those individual pieces of conversation necessarily come to bear over and above what the actual action item was. And the motion that was made and seconded and passed by a majority of this board was the Pledge of Allegiance was to be said at school every day inside before instructional time. So we've had some feedback saying that the desire is to have it during what I'm going to call it morning meeting time, and that might not be the most accurate way to describe it, but like after that notion of classes begin, which I think Sandy and I discovered very shortly after December meeting, that was some imprecise language that this board employed, which I have a recommendation around that in a little minute. But we've heard feedback to include members of the public tonight saying that it should not be part of instructional time, should not be part of that morning meeting setup. So it's my recommendation, and I'd like to hear from the rest of you as well. It's my recommendation that we don't make any functional change to the practice as we voted in favor of it in December, but I would recommend that we make a language change in there. So we use that phrase beginning of instructional time, which isn't really defined anywhere. But when we look to the student handbook, which is published on the website, it uses the phrase "classes begin" to signify the beginning of the school day. So schools open well before when classes begin. Looking through anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes before. So the doors open anywhere 25 to 40 minutes before classes begin. And I would recommend that we modify the practice that we had put forth in December only to substitute classes begin for beginning of instructional time. To have our language, have the language of this board jive with the language of the hand. So what do people think? What do board members think?
So I would like to ask our superintendent if he feels that that would give the clarity that would be necessary in schools.
I would have to say that I'm hearing this for the first time. I'm processing. Yeah.
Sorry.
So, I mean, and this is why I abstained, because I abstained last time because they said we talk about instructional time. In the contract, there's no instructional time. For me, the start of school is the moment my student becomes tardy. As an elementary school, that'd be 8:30 in Shasbury, or it used to be 8:30 in Shasbury. 7:50 at the high school. So before that, I would consider non-instructional time, because the kids can be in the building, they're not being directly instructed, and that when it should occur. Yes, there are bus issues. My feeling is if you feel strongly about it, then you get your kid to school for that moment. If they do it at 8:05 or if they do it at 8:20. But I think at 8:30, as soon as that bell rings, you get marked tardy. That's the moment where school starts. From then until the end of the day, it's instructional time until they're released. But then there's that moment at the end of the day where there's non-instructional time, where kids are waiting again, buses or, mulling their belt. So
So I remember the conversation correctly. It was brought up that parents sometimes can get their children to school on time, but may not be able to get them there sooner. And yet they would still like their child to be a part of the pledge. So to expect parents to get their children even earlier for something that can be said after that tardy, whatever that tardy time is, because it will vary maybe from school to school.
Yep.
I think is necessary. Otherwise, the range of time makes it impossible for a family to make it to whatever time that is designated. So after the tardy, what's the wording?
Classes begin.
Classes begin. I think is reasonable. I would hope that I would hope that we would allow our teachers, should they feel that they wanted to lead it, but I'm sure that we also said that the principal would overall decide how the pledge would go toward in that school.
Right, because we had talked in I think I'm getting the timeline. We had discussed in November the idea of essentially holding a daily assembly to do the pledge. And we very quickly got feedback from our principal saying that was not doable at all. That's what prompted us to take the further action in December. I think I shared at the December meeting. If not the November meeting, I'll share it again. For sure, Sandy, what you just said is correct. There are going to be situations where at times, and Jeff, you spoke to this as well, where families are unable at times to get their students to school much before when classes begin. And I think that's going to happen. That happens sometimes.
Yes.
And thankfully, there are lots of other opportunities for a person to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And so it's not like if they don't get to school, they don't get to say it that day. That's just not it. And I think I'd rather see if it really comes down to a choice between some parents are not always going to be able to get their kids to school on time to say the pledge. Sure. And so that option, or kids in school who either don't want to or whose parents have said don't say the pledge, them having to single themselves out and not do it when they're required to be in that classroom. But they have to separate themselves out. Otherwise, it's choosing between doing what their parents say or what their teachers say, or doing what their parents say or what the kids around.
And as much as I accept what you're sharing, I also believe that it's a civic responsibility to teach and to learn what to do if you don't want to say it. So there is also a lesson to be had for those students who are not saying it, but are being respectful to those who are.
Yep. And again, when it comes down to who is the person who ought to be shouldering this lesson, I'd rather have the adults who want to get their kids to school at a certain time shoulder the responsibility for making this happen, then put it on first grader to learn how to separate themselves out and respectfully coexist with somebody who has a different perspective on this. And which is not to say that kids ought not to learn that. Sure, they should. But if we're talking about developing a practice that places responsibility on someone, I'd rather the adult shoulder the responsibility.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I went to Shasbury School, going right up straight through. We always said Pledge of Allegiance. There were 2 kids in my class that didn't, and they just sat at their tables. But I think too, this could be, a learning curve. People are worried about bullying, this, that, and everything. So, the Pledge of Allegiance, but also, be teaching kindness too. If the child doesn't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, that I guess is okay. But I'll probably get a lot of backlash from this, but I do feel that for a child as young as 1st and 2nd grade, learning the Pledge of Allegiance, I think is important because it's part of our history. And is this a parent's decision that they don't want their child not saying the Pledge of Allegiance because of their beliefs? Because I don't think a child at that age can form a belief on that, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not a parent, and well, I am, I'm a grandparent, but I just, if a child doesn't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, I don't think they should be forced to. But once again, I'm hearing some of the teachers aren't even saying it in the classroom. Who told them the teacher's responsible for not saying classroom?
Yeah, so as far as the action that was taken by the board, it was, and the request from the principals was give them a direction and let them implement that direction. So I don't know that this board necessarily knows one way or the other how each of our building principals is implementing the directive that was given back in December.
And that would still be Jeff Johnson?
I mean, at Shasbury, sure, but there are, each one of our buildings has a principal or a principal presence.
So it's left up to the teacher if they want to say the Pledge of Allegiance in the class and more.
No, it's left up to the principal to enact the directive that the board gave them in this, and possibly tonight, we decide to make any changes. Cindy?
I don't feel that Mr. Johnson should be telling the teachers, you can't. This board has already said we want the Pledge of Allegiance to go on the way it has been going on for many, many years. And it's only been lately that it's upsetting people, and I'm sorry, but we're not forcing your child to say it, but I don't feel that Mr. Johnson has the right to say to the teachers, you're not going to do it, after we said it should be.
So again, what this board said, and you seconded the motion, was that the principals or their designees are directed to recite or lead one of the, I forget what our verb choice was, the Pledge of Allegiance in schools, inside before instructional time began. And what I don't think this board ought to do openly, I mean, we just added it tonight. We do have a piece of executive session, and we have an option to go into executive session to discuss performance, but I don't think this board should be having open discussion about any one employee's performance. So if we have issues on any one of our building principals, let's set aside time to do it the proper way. And I just don't want to talk about.
Well,
anyone.
we already voted on it, and after that, it didn't work.
I don't know that it didn't work. I think there was,
Yeah.
what there was, we have
Confusion on the language.
yes, that's what we have.
Because we use the terminology that the teachers recommended during those public comments saying non-instructional time. So we use the exact same wording that they use. We're going to do it during non-instructional time. The question is, what's non-instructional time?
Right.
And that's the part we're sticky on. Non-instructional time to me is the moment you're tardy, that's when school starts, and the teachers need to be working with kids till the bell ends. So non-instructional time for me was before 8:30. And that's how I spread it. And that's how
And
I assume.
So we need to clarify.
We need to
that.
clear up non-instructional times. I think we also need to clarify on how we proceed with presenting the grades put during that time. 100%. We have teachers who tell kids to, it's time to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're a kindergartner and somebody says it's time to stand up, what are you going to do? It's time to go line up at the door. You line up at the door. So, I think that's the part we have to look at is the language involved. Because lawsuits have been brought forward and won because teachers tell kids to stand up, which they don't have to do. So I think it'd be very respectful of that language about how you to present it to the kids.
Which is why I think the language we chose, with the exception of the instructional time piece of it, I think the language that we chose was right. Because it hit everything we hit, but does not make it occur during the time when kids are legally required to be in that room. It hits everything else that we had wanted to hit. And so for my money, members of the board, I think the only change we make is to change beginning of instructional time to the wording that exists within the handbook, which is classes begin.
If there are buses that are showing up at 8:29, because they're walking to school every day late, it would be addressed out of the bus.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
You know, if the parents are bringing their kids to school, I'm responsible to be at work at 8 o'clock. If I walk in at 8:05, I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's not it's my responsibility as a grown up to get there in time. It's my responsibility to bring my kid to high school, unless I put her on the bus, and get her there on time. If she's late, I own that target. I own that 7:51 at the high school target because it's my responsibility to get my kid there. If she took the bus, she'd be there at 7:30. There are options for most kids to get to school. If you're walking, the kid needs to get out that early. It's the parent's responsibility.
So I think I would like to make a motion to change those words from instructional time to classes begin.
Okay.
And I hope that that is clear for our schools to understand what our intent is and what we are asking of them.
So I want to make sure I have this correct. So you are making a motion to modify the directive that we gave at our December meeting to substitute the phrase classes begin for the existing phrase beginning of instructional time.
Correct.
There's the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thanks, Jim. First and a second. Any further discussion on this?
So can we just clarify, repeat it? So
Sure.
I just say,
So the, I should have written down what I wrote down when I read was in December. Okay, so the motion on the table is to modify this board's December directive to principals regarding the Pledge of Allegiance to substitute the phrase classes begin with the phrase beginning of instructional time.
No, from instructional time.
Yes,
Classes begin.
thank you. And that's why we review these things. Yes, thank you. To modify this board's December 2024 directive to substitute the phrase classes begin for the phrase beginning of instructional time.
From instructional time to classes begin.
Yes, to substitute the phrase classes begin for.
Okay. Did you
Yes.
just say that again?
He said. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, good.
Okay, there's our motion. Yeah, Cindy.
So if moving forward,
Mhm.
if we have another issue, then we'll just take it deeper.
I mean, I think one thing I
What was that gotcha look you just gave me? What?
We're discussing it and discussing
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and we're trying to come up with the right words. But already we had an issue come forward to us. If another issue, the same issue comes forward to us because it's being done, then we'll take it further.
Yeah, I think absolutely. If we ever get,
3 times an hour.
if complaints are made, but I would say, I don't know that we've had issues necessarily. I think we have points of disagreement. I don't know that we've necessarily had issues.
All right, you're looking at it different from me.
Okay, and so I guess I would just, but whenever we have word of a principal not following the directives of the board, like action should be taken, 100%.
That's an issue.
Yes.
Okay, we're both speaking English.
We also have the other thing is like, there's no federal policy in place. It's no state law saying the Pledge of Allegiance to school. Other states have laws on the book. You know, 47 states have laws in the book about what to do about the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, if this is such a pressing issue, some people in our community should press our legislators to move something forward. I mean, they're asking us a big question. It's the legislators' problem. You know, no bill has been introduced this year about the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, we're one of 3 states that don't have to say it. And if you look at all the other 47 states, they have laws in the book about the pledge. So, I mean, if people are really outraged, talk to your local reps. Tell them what you want. Encourage them to introduce the bill. We had one rep here who I would have thought would have introduced the bill, and she didn't. Which is, I mean, that's the part that, they're putting pressure on us to make the decision. It's really the state decision. Why do you get to say in this district, but the next district doesn't have to say it? It's not equitable or fair. And we go to this bigger board of potentially, we're looking at a huger territory and it could change then. I mean, Roy, if you want this change to occur, it has to go to the state. You know, I mean, that's my feeling. That's my 2 cents.
Any further discussion, conversation? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to modify our December directive to substitute to, instead of say beginning of instructional time, instead it will say classes begin. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, very good. All right, agenda item 8, superintendent report.
I want to talk tonight about the best educational use of facilities report. One of the next steps there. Tours have been completed at the schools. There are options in the report that I believe the board should review and either adopt or reject, but at least begin the discussion on it. So what were those? You already did one of the options. You formed the committee to study it. The other options, as a reminder, consider moving all grade 6 students from Pownell Elementary School and Shaftesbury Elementary School and Woodford Elementary School to Mount Anthony Middle School. I'm not, for this point of this discussion, I'm not going to read the pluses and minuses, both that are advantages and disadvantages of both that are in the option that it's in the report. But that is one of the recommendations that we should study, consider, reject it, accept it, but put that discussion to bed. The report indicates that there is significant room at the middle school to do it, but it also points out there would be some adjustments, maybe some transportation changes, could be some increased travel time for 6th grade students. And I think the consideration of these options in light of what's happening on the state level with consolidation is probably even more timely than when we started this. The second option that's in the report, consider refiguring elementary schools as a single standalone early childhood center, K2 and 3-5 or 3-6 across the 6 elementary schools. This is one of the things that prompted the whole study in the first place, that with all the elementary schools we have, we run and configure the grades the same way. Do we want to consider having a dedicated early childhood center that one of the schools could be? This is the one that has the biggest impact on transportation costs and would be more of a challenge to implement, but it is in the report. We should review it. Option number 3, consider closing the Woodford Elementary School and redistributing those students to 5 other elementary schools. Again, this is probably even more timely given the state report and what they're saying is a minimum of class size and school size. There's going to be a number of challenges with Woodford Elementary School. One of it being that under the current proposal, no one teacher could teach more than 2 grades. So we could be in a position that Woodford, if that passed and Woodford stayed open, you'd be adding a teacher there. The current enrollment at Woodford Elementary is 22. 4 of them are school choice, and 1 is a tuition student from Searsburg. So, so the numbers are down there. So it's time for that discussion, and the board needs to weigh in. My opinion, the board needs to weigh in with what do you want to do. It's our highest per pupil cost is at that school. It certainly has advantages for the small school feeling, but I don't know what's going to happen to the state level. I don't know what the state is going to, they're talking minimum school, their ideal school size is 450 students. We don't have any of our elementary schools that have that kind of number. And in class size, again, so Woodford would not make it on class size, wouldn't make it on the teacher ratio, and wouldn't make it on total school population. So those are the 3 options. I don't intend that we discuss them tonight, but it's, this report's been sitting out there a while. None of those options are new or surprising or shocking to anybody who read it, but let's review them. Let's put them on reconvene this committee and have a thoughtful discussion. It may involve, should involve community discussion. There's pluses and minuses, advantages, disadvantages, but I'm just bringing it all back, putting it on everybody's front burners.
Can you please,
Resend that report to everybody? Yes, because we do have new board members here doing. I will do that. I was reading your mind.
Yeah. So just to explain what he's talking about, I think just for you, Corinne. So 18 months ago or so, we contracted with an organization to take a look at all of it, much like Superintendent Culkin said, all of our elementary school buildings. Not just the schools themselves. We have the Beach Street program over there. There are a few other smaller areas. Taking a look at saying, hey, this is what we have. What's the best way to use it? It was done sort of in recognition of the fact that building new buildings is probably not realistic. Given the manner in which new construction would have to be funded, the lack of just physical space to do a thing like that, we figured we better take a close look at how we can best use what our resources are right now. So there were a number of people on that committee. A former board member was on for a little bit of time. Jeff agreed to step in and fill that void when the term ended for that board member. So, so Superintendent Culkin, if you can please make sure that gets sent around to everyone.
Sending it to Amy right now.
What I-
She will have your distribution. So,
Thank you. What I'd like for us to do is to have an in-depth conversation as a board on this next month. And Superintendent Culkin, I don't know, does it make sense for Director Anderson to guide us through part of that conversation?
Because she's been working with that committee.
Yeah. So maybe what we can do is have her lead the conversation.
But that would be more physical stuff. We also make, like she wouldn't be able to talk about what I just talked about the grade levels.
Yep.
But she can give you a physical of some of the challenges of the buildings. Yeah.
I also don't see this board making a decision next month either.
No.
I think this is big enough and it's complex enough that we ought to take our time to really figure.
And I hesitated bringing it up because, I don't know who's listening at home and you're like, wait, the superintendent said we're moving all 6 to the middle school. So we said, superintendent said we're closing one for elementary school. So we said,
The retiring guy is going to close down Woodford.
timing is everything, but, we should have that discussion. Especially if we have the challenges of, are we even going to remain an independent SU or are we going to be merged? So, yeah.
Okay. Anything else for the superintendent's report? No. Okay. Any questions on what we just heard from the superintendent? Okay. Thank you very much. So moving on to the SVSU report. So which of our reps would like to give a report from the SU?
We haven't had a meeting since, so
Wednesday night.
Wednesday, we were a little early, so,
All right.
so good.
I just went back into last month's agenda and it's basically what we're working on now.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It was, supposed to be next week, which is school vacation week, but the chair, moved it up a week. So we have a double stacked meeting Wednesday night. MAU at 5:30, the SU at 7.
Okay. So that brings us to the chair report. I'll just keep it brief. Thanks to everyone for your flexibility in the scheduling of this month and last month. Had a thing moved for one of my son's school that we needed to attend to. So we rescheduled it, forgetting totally. I forgot that we have a game tomorrow. So there's that. So thanks for everyone for being patient. We'll be on a regular schedule from here on out. Knock wood. There's no real wood here. So that really concludes the chair report. There's not much else to add. We do have a few FYI items, then we should move into executive session. We will be coming back. There is an action that's requested following executive session. If anyone wishes to stick around. But right now, the FYI items are the budget status reports, the audit report from FY24, the calendar for next academic year, and then there's some guidance from the Agency of Education related to immigration and some of the mandates that are coming down from the feds. So those are FYI, or agenda item 11, which brings to agenda item 12, executive session. So I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session as outlined in the amended agenda. And what I'd also like to invite the superintendent and Director Galt as well.
So moved.
Thanks, Stephanie. Do you have a second on that? Thanks, Stephanie. Any discussion about moving into executive session as described? Hearing none, all those in favor of entering executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're good. Thank you. We will move into executive
So
session.
not yet, there's a lot of people electronically that I got to move into.
I get a sprain day.
Richard, yeah, teacher then.
Okay, are we back on, Nick? Okay, thanks. So I would entertain a motion to exit executive session, please.
So moved.
Thanks, Clint. Thank you. First and second, any discussion on exiting executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor of exiting executive session, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're now in open session again. This board will not be taking action, although we had thought we might. So that exhausts our posted agenda. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Cindy. Can we have a second, please?
Second.
Thanks, Sandy. We have first and a second, any discussion about adjourning? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.